In this video, we're going to be looking at some basic data cleaning, removing symbols that we don't want, and we're going to be exporting our data out into CSV or JSON files, and we're also going to be looking at how you can overwrite a CSV file each time, or you can append to it as you go along. Two different options for you. So this is part 4 in my Web Scraping with Python series. There's a playlist with the other parts if you wanted to follow along from the beginning. Those will definitely help you out. Where we left off is that we actually have our data class up here, and we are actually just printing out the dictionary that we created from that data class every time we loop through and get our product. So what we want to do is we want to actually export this so we can persist and save this data. The first thing that I'm going to do is look at exporting it into a JSON file, which is pretty simple but is still a very useful thing to have. So we're going to actually import in JSON from the top. This is going to allow us to actually save this into a file using JSON. So underneath my function here for extracting text, I'm going to create a new function, and we'll call this one export to JSON. There we go. And we'll take in a list of products like this. So what we want to do is we want to take this and we want to dump all of this into our JSON file. So we're going to do with open, we're going to use a context manager when we're handling files in Python. So we know that the file is always closed properly when we're done with it. So I'm just going to hard code the file name in here. You could of course add this in a different way if you wanted to, products.json, and we're going to make this a write file, and we'll do as f like this. From here it's nice and simple. We can do json.dump. We want to dump the file. We want to dump the contents into a file. If you were to use dump s, that would be dumping it into a string, or load if load from a file, and load s, loads is from a string. We want to make this a file, so we're going to do dump, and we're going to give it our products like so, and then we need to actually give it the file so we know where it's dumping it to. So that's essentially it, but you'll see that we're going to run into a couple of issues when we actually do this, but I'm going to run it and I'll show you what I mean. So coming down to the bottom of our file, instead of looping through all of the products in our products list that we've got here, we actually want to save the whole list, so we don't actually need this anymore. So what we're going to do is, once we have completed our scraping, we're going to do products, export to JSON, and our products list. Now this list here is actually going to be, if we look at our pass item page, a list of our data class new item. Now what we can't actually do is just directly pass that as JSON, so we have a couple of options. We could do what we did down here, and we could go through each product and convert it to a dictionary, or we can actually just export as dict up here, which is what I'm going to do in this example. Now, this kind of does look like it's going to sort of nullify the point of using a data class, and in a way it does, but I wanted to include that anyway because using a data class for handling any kind of data in Python is really quite important modern skill to know how to do. So we are still going to put our data into this data class, but then we're going to basically convert it back to a dictionary right away for exporting. Now, as your code grows, you will find and reap the benefits of having a data class as you start to move data around your whole application. Whereas in this case, we're basically just putting it in and then asking for the dictionary back out, where we could be creating a dictionary directly here instead. So I'll leave that up to you as to how you decide to handle this, whether you want to strip the data class out and basically just yield a dictionary, or whether you want to copy what I've done here and hedge your bets for the future. So what we're going to do now is this is going to return a dictionary. So we're going to basically get a list of dictionaries which we can serialize into a JSON file. So I'm going to run this. I'll format my file. Perfect. We're going to run this now, and we'll see what we get out at the other end once we've exported this out into JSON, and we'll show you the couple of sort of little gotchas that you get when you might be doing this and how to sort of get around them with various things like encoding. So we'll wait till this is done and then we'll come back. So we can see this is finished, so I'm going to open up the JSON file, products.json, and there we can see that we have it all here. So I'm going to format this with black, which usually does a pretty good job. Now, as you can see, my code editor is actually giving me errors here saying, hey, this doesn't look like a proper JSON file. There's a few things wrong with it. And that is true. So if you were to copy this text out and put it into a JSON formatter, it would complain about these things here as well. But we can get around this. There are ways that we can do this, and I just wanted to show you. So I'm going to come back to my main, my chapter 4 here, and we're going to come back to our export to JSON function. Now, instead of just doing our opening it as write, we want to specify the encoding as well. So I'm going to put in here encoding is equal to, and we want to use UTF-8. This is just going to make sure that the actual data that gets put in there is correctly encoded for our JSON file. The next thing we want to do here is have another parameter in here. We're going to have ensure ASCII is equal to false. And then we'll put the indent is equal to 4. So this is just going to format our file much nicer. We're going to get the proper encoding. We'll have our proper ASCII and everything like that. So it's going to work much nicer for us. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to run it one more time real quick. And I'll show you that the file that we got out the other end is much better and much nicer formatted JSON file. Okay, so that's done. So let's open up our products.json again. You can see right away, without me doing anything, it's nicely indented, we don't have that trailing comma, and it's all formatted nicely. Now this is correct JSON. Now, JSON is good if you wanted to pass stuff around computers, or if you want to like put it through an API or something like that. But if you want it to be human readable, most people will still go for a CSV file. So let's look at exporting to CSV next. So we're going to create a new function, and we'll call this one export to CSV. We're going to have the same products here. We're going to be taking in a list of dictionaries of products because we're going to be using the dictionary writer, which is our CSV module. So let's put parse in here for 1 second. We'll come back up to the top and we need to import in CSV like so. Let's come back down here and we can start. So we want to do a couple of different things that we need to do with a CSV file. So obviously a CSV needs to have headers. So we need to be able to say this is the header for the file and then append or add all of the rows underneath it. So we don't get like a header, then a row, then another header, and then a row. So we want to define our headers by our field names. Now our field names are essentially these. This is the columns that we're going to have: name, number, price, and rating. So to do that, we want to say these are our field names. Like this, field names is equal to, and let me put this in the middle of my screen. And we'll say, we're going to do some list comprehension here. So we'll do fields dot name for field in our item field. So fields item, like this. Now we'll need to, so what is fields? So fields is from data class, from our data class. So I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to import in fields. So what this is it's going to give us access to the fields of data within our data class. So what we're saying here is we're basically, where is it? Here it is. We're basically just creating a list of the field names from our data class. Now this is important. This is coming from the data class, not from our data that we've exported. So when we put data into our data class, we know it fits in with our data schema, I suppose. So we can take it from here, our data class fields, rather than the actual item fields itself. Now, there is another way you can do this. Where are we here? You can also take it from the dictionary keys if you wanted to, but I wanted to show you how to do it using the fields from data classes, just so you can get a good idea of how useful data classes can be, as I explained just a bit earlier. So now that we have our headers, if you like, using the fields, so we have our field names, we can start to write to our file. So we'll do with open again, and we'll call this products.csv. And again, we're going to do it as write and as f. So we're basically opening the file up. Again, same context manager. Make sure you use a context manager when you're dealing with files. Opens them and closes them for you so nothing gets left hanging around. We can now start to construct our file. So we're going to do writer is going to be equal to the csv.dict writer, like so. And this is going to take in our file and the field names that we created. You can see that I have field names equals to here. I've got it like this. So this is going to work just fine. Then write header. So we have our header completed. This is the top line of our file. And then writer.write rows on the products. So this is going to take our list of dictionaries. We're going to create our field names using our data class fields like this. Then we're going to write them to the top of the line, and then for every row, we create a new row in our CSV file and write it to there. What I'll do is I'm just going to write a quick print statement here. So we'll say saved to CSV, just so we can see it going on later, and I'll add the same one into our JSON file, print our JSON function, saved to JSON, like so. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add this in here. So we'll do export to CSV. Again, we'll give it our list of products. And I'll save, and we'll run this now, and we'll see. We should get our JSON file still being saved because we've got our function in here, along with our new CSV file, which we are saving here. So it's finished, and you can see we have saved to CSV and saved to JSON. So let's go ahead and open up products.csv. Now, it's not formatted all that well in my code editor. If you were to open this up in Excel or whatever, you would see it all neatly in there. So you can see that we have the name, item number, price, and rating. There's our name, the item number, price, and the rating. So let's go back to our main file. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're basically constructing all of our data, storing it in memory in a list, and then choosing our output file like this. Now that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But what you might want to do is add to an existing file, so you continuously update the same CSV file, for example, with new data that comes in. So to do that, we want to actually change our function ever so slightly. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a new function to do that, just so we can have a distinction about from the two. So let's create a new function, and we'll call this one append to CSV. And we're going to give it a product list or a product, and then we can do the same thing here. We need our field names back. Let's put those in. There we go, like this. And then we'll do with open, because we want to create a context manager for our file. Let's call this one append CSV.csv, like so. Now here's the difference. Instead of using W, we're going to use A. So we're opening it as append to a file rather than W, which is write to a file, which would overwrite the file every time you save it. So as F. And again, we'll just have the same sort of thing. Writer is equal to our csv.dictWriter, takes in our file and the field names, where is it? There it is. And then we can do writer dot write row on the product here, like so. Now I'm not writing the header because that would put it in each time, so I'm just going to leave it like this. This can probably be tidied up a little bit, but I'll show you how it works now. So instead of exporting at the end, we'll just comment these out like this. We will actually be able to put this into our actual loop here. So we now no longer need our main list, so we don't need to do this. So we can remove our products.append like this. So this is going to hold our product information. So we can say, instead of just appending it to a list, we can actually have our append to CSV. What comes out of this pass, or what was the function called? It was pass item page. Yep, so we just change this to append to CSV, like this. So what this is going to do is that every time it goes through this, it's going to return a dictionary, and we're going to take that into our append to CSV file, and it's going to add it to that file as we go through. So what I'll do is I'm going to change this just to make it a bit quicker, is I'm going to save, and then we'll run it again, and we should now get the same sort of thing at the end. We'll have a CSV file with all of the items in, and then I'll run it again, and you'll see that we actually get the same items but in the same file added on the bottom, i.e. appended as we go through each iteration of the loop. So that's finished. So let's open up our append to CSV file. So you can see that we have all the information here. So I'm just going to close this, and we will run it again, and we'll see that we get the duplicate information. Now this is obviously going to take whatever you give it, and it's going to append it to that file. But this is still a useful skill to know, still can be quite handy especially if you're going through loads of items. For example, maybe some things will fail. You can save your item that you've got that's worked instantly and then move past anything that fails, for example. So let's have our append CSV file, and you can see we have the same things over again because obviously I scraped the same items there. So there's some things with this data which aren't quite right, really. We have the item number, but it has this in front of it. It has the item number. We don't need that. We know that this is the item number. We just want the number itself. And let's say we want to be able to handle the price differently. We know that this is all in dollars or whatever currency. If you need the currency, you can keep it, but I'm going to remove it in this instance. We might also need to tidy up anything extra, but let's just start with that. So let's come back to our chapter 4 file here. So we're going to start with some really basic data cleaning. So I'm going to create a function that's going to take in a piece of data, and then it's going to run it through a few different things and then spit it back out the other way, looking how we want it to look. So let's have a new function. We'll call this one clean our data. I'm just going to take in a value like so. So I'm going to create a list of characters now that I want to remove from any piece of information that comes through this function. So I'm going to call this one chars to remove, and this is going to be a list. So the first one that we want to remove is that $sign. So we don't need that in there. We want to be able to handle our currency as an actual number value rather than a string with a dollar symbol in front of it. The second one that I want to remove is the word item. We want to take that off. We want to remove that part from the actual item number itself. And the other thing that was in there was the hash, the pound sign, the hash symbol like that. So we can remove that from our data as we go along. So now we have a list of the characters that we want to remove. We want to loop through that list and match it against our value that we're taking into this function, so we can then get rid of them if we find them we don't need them. So we want to do for character in our characters to remove. So this is going to loop through each one of these. Then we'll have if that character, if chart, in our value, not value error, in our value is equal to value dot replace char, that character, with nothing, like this. So it's going to say if we find this character inside the value that we've given to the function, which is going to be our product, let's replace it with nothing. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to return out of here value dot strip. So if it finds this character, it's going to replace it with nothing. If it doesn't, it's still going to return strip, which is going to remove any unnecessary white space from the data. And that's quite a common thing you'll find within web scraping when you're pulling stuff from HTML. So now we've created this clean data function, we need to put it in our code somewhere so it actually runs. Now, if you think about it, we can't clean any text data if we didn't get text data to start with. So I think a good place to put this in is into our extract text function. So we can say, if there is no text to be found, we get that attribute error and we get none. Well, we can't do our data cleaning on none because it needs that text. So I'm going to put it in here instead. So I'm just going to change this ever so slightly. I'm going to remove return, and we're going to say that our text is equal to this, and then we're going to return our clean data text like so. This is going to be a neater way of handling. We're going to extract the text and clean it at the same time. Now, quite often in bigger scraping projects, you take the data and then you stick it through various pipelines, which then clean it and extract it. This is kind of like our mini pipeline. We're taking the text, but we are cleaning it and returning it at the same time. So I'm going to save, and we'll just double check we are exporting to JSON. So I'm going to run this again, and then we'll see that we have actually removed that information, that all those characters that we didn't want have been removed from our exported file. Okay, that's saved. So let's find our JSON file. There we go. And we can see that we have now remove that data from the item number that we said that we were going to remove and from the price for each one. And we will also have removed any white space that we had within this file as well. So that's going to make our lives much easier when it comes to actually dealing with or working with this data, whichever way you are choosing to. So that's it for this video. We've covered quite a lot here. We've done some really basic data cleaning. We've exported as a massive chunk into JSON or into CSV. I also covered appending to a CSV a little bit, which is something that I do sometimes, but maybe a little bit less. So this is part 4. There's still a couple more parts to come. I'm working on those. I think you're really going to enjoy them. So if you want to make sure that you're up to date when those come out, go ahead and subscribe to my channel below. And if you want to see more web scraping content now, you're going to want to watch this video where I take this concept, apply it to a different website, and you'll see how I make it all work like that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.